Welcome everyone to the Wednesday, October 20th, 2021 Garrison Board of Education regular business meeting. I'm going to call to order. Dusty, will you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Apicello.
Here.
David Gelber.
Here.
Madeline Julian.
Here.
Courtney McCarthy.
Here.
Kent Schott.
Here.
Matthew Speiser.
Here.
Sarah Tormey.
Here. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Sorry, do the construction. We're going to join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry about that. We're working hard to get this room ready every time we need it. Okay. Now, before we go on to the next item on our agenda, we have a very special guest here this evening. Carl, did you want to introduce Mr. Masser?
It would be a pleasure. Thank you for rearranging the order, Sarah. We have a special presenter. Evan Masick is a senior at James O'Neill High School. And Evan attended Garrison, as many of you may know. I invited him because he did a significant Eagle Scout project for our school district that is really benefiting our students who are working outside with the school garden program. But Evan I got to know him over the course of working on this project. He's a very impressive young man. He is an outstanding student. We're very proud of the work that he's doing. He's also a high-level varsity soccer player. But also he's very dedicated to community service. So I'd love to invite him up and give him a few minutes just to share with the board and the community the fine work that he did. Evan, if you just walk over to Mr. Jimmick, he'll hand you a mic.
Good evening. My name is Evan Masick, and I just wanted to say thank you to a couple people and organizations. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Albano for his support, because I definitely couldn't have finished my project without him. He helped me get all the approvals I needed. I also wanted to thank Nicole Porto from Land to Learn. She helped inspire the project, and she showed the need that for the project and the help that it would give the students. I'd also like to thank Danes Lumber for the guidance and help that they gave to me throughout the entire project. And I'd like to thank Mr. Twardy for his support too. So thanks again.
Tell us about the project.
Yeah. So it was a garden storage locker that Nicole approached me about because all the tools and equipment were locked away or stored outside in the elements. So now that we have this storage box, it's easy access and for the students to have the tools, and it'll keep the tools nice and safe from the elements, so they'll stay relatively clean and new.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. We really appreciate it, and I'll let you know it's getting very good use. I was out there earlier in the week, and our first graders were going in and out of the storage box that you created, getting the tools and doing some gardening, and it really helped with efficiency, and so they can spend a lot more instructional time focused, and it's just been a real benefit to the program. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, grab a microphone, please, Ken. Grab a mic.
Were you also involved in the cabin in the school forest, the rebuilding of that?
Yes, I was. That was my brother's project.
Okay.
Excellent.
I believe you have an upcoming camping trip with the scouts to that cabin. Is that correct? In a few weeks? I'm thrilled to see it's getting some use.
I'll just add, and Evan's parents are here this evening, and John and I have had a number of conversations. John leads our local scout troop, and they've done a lot of community service in clearing trails for us. They've done some camping up in the school forest, but we really appreciate, John, all that you and all of the scouts do for the school district. I just want to recognize that and say thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Now, I know Evan, oh, yes. Now, I know Evan has a physics exam, I believe, so you are welcome to head home and do some more studying, and again, thank you.
You can also stay for the audit presentation. It is very interesting. We welcome scouts at any of our meetings anytime. I know there are some merit badges that involve coming and seeing a body of governance in work. So anytime you guys want to come, please, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening.
All right. Next up, we have agenda changes and approval. Do we have any recommended changes this evening to the agenda?
I would recommend if maybe we could move public comment up to after the presentations.
Okay.
I move. I wonder.
So that would bring it to after the capital project update. Does anyone have any thoughts or objections to that? Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I got distracted. Yes. All right. Well, then let's go. I'm going to go ahead and just do this. So, be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the agenda as amended. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Before we go on, I have another special presentation. I'm going to introduce Dusty Callow, who is our district clerk. Most of you, well, all of you in this room know, anyone watching at home, she is the one who keeps us on track, knows all of the rules and regulations, and is our go-to for everything we need to keep this board functioning. So thank you, Dusty.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do a short presentation for all of you tonight. And I'll just be very brief. Back when the capital project was about to get underway in June, I recognized an opportunity to maybe take some old material from Garrison's past and put it to good use, and also keeping in mind with the environmental concern of the folks here in Garrison. I too am someone who does not like to see good material go to waste if it's got a purpose for a future life. So without further ado, I'm going to show you this presentation and then we'll have a little unveiling this evening.
Thank you for Tyler.
Okay. The unveiling. Beautiful. Yeah. I should have had you go first, then I would have had poor Mr. Evan wander around the microphone. Oh, it's beautiful. It's on casters, it's easy to move, there's handles to easily move it. We're going to eventually attach it with a cast light as well. If we need it for an evening performance or whatever needs it might have. So just a little something I wrote for this evening. Good evening to our Board of Education members, Superintendent Albano, teachers, staff, and the Garrison community. When you look a little closer, you will see that this newly created podium is not perfect, nor is it intended to be. It is sprinkled with little imperfections, just like each of us. However, I am always inspired that although we are not perfect, we strive to work towards improvement and the common goal to make things better than we found them. There are so many exciting things happening at once in this tiny district. I am truly honored to share in this effort and grateful for the opportunity to have created something from Garrison's past that will become part of news stories in its future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dusty. That is truly beautiful and very special.
Thank you. And just to continue with a short acknowledgement, a brief acknowledgement this evening as well, we'd also like to acknowledge that it is School Board Appreciation Week here in New York State. Each of you have a little gift at your table, compliments of me, and I'll turn it over to Carl from here.
Thank you, Dusty. Well, I'd like to just let the board know that Dusty, Joe Jimmick, and I always very often find ourselves talking about just how honored we are and how fortunate we are to be working with the board and the seven of you. We really, really mean that sincerely. You do things that take you away from your families, take you away sometimes from your work, and it's a huge commitment. And I think sometimes the public doesn't always realize how much time you give to this school district. Certainly we do, because we understand the full extent of the work that you do. But a public meeting is just part of it. There are the trainings, there are the workshops. Madeline, our liaison to New York School Board Association. There are the committees. We have 6 committees that all of you either chair or serve on. The budget process, the planning process, the goal setting. All of those things take place behind the scenes and out of the public eye. And I just need to say, we deeply, deeply appreciate your work. You really are a model. This past Monday, I was invited to speak at the educational leadership group at Manhattan College. A professor invited me in just to talk about the role of a superintendency. And I gave a presentation. They had some wonderful questions. Some of their questions were about working with the school board. They're listening to the news. They're hearing some really challenging situations that school boards are facing out there across the country. And I spoke about this district and our school board and really used you as a model. When you look at the research, all the things that highly effective school boards do to create a successful district, you do, day in and day out. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you. You are very, very much appreciated. And I also would like to just say, I think we do have 2 community members who may want to also just say a few words of thanks. So Ned Roush, our PTA president, I know, would like to, yes, please, you're the first to speak at our new podium, Dustin.
Pretty nice, Dusty. Ned Roush from the PTA here. Dusty invited me to participate in this magnificent moment of board appreciation week, which is everybody's dream, and what a gig. But truly, I've been to a few of these meetings, but in my previous life as a newspaper reporter, I've been to about 1 billion of these meetings in way upstate New York and down by the city, covered tiny little rural districts and big urban districts, and so I've seen some things, and I've seen that you guys work together really, really well, and I've also seen some common threads. In the school districts I covered that worked well, people are creative and attentive and innovative and patient and generous, and you guys are all of those things and more, so I take my hat off to you there. And the other thing I've seen in school boards is that there's a general lack of whimsy and of sort of apparent fun during the meetings, not backstage and not at other times, but during the meetings. It doesn't seem like there's that much, razzle dazzle, let's have a good time. And I thought about this when I was coming down here. I didn't realize I'd be following an Eagle Scout and Dusty with her Podium. Dusty, by the way, we had a talk about a year ago. Did you know that she's a rodeo champion? Yeah, okay, you all knew that. But that knocks me out. So again, I didn't know I'd be following Dusty. But I did think, if you hold on one second. And with a ukulele. And I happen to have a ukulele. And I didn't think that you'd ever been serenaded in this room before. Am I right? All right, Carl, is this a first for you? All right, good. So then I thought I would write a song. And then I had a better thought, which was, that would be a horrible song. A song about school boards would be about the worst song ever. So I thought, this is what the classics are for, this is what the standards are for. So I thought I'd sing a song that we sing at home a lot, and at least it would be a first, if nothing else. And you can sing along, I'm sure you know it. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy, skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Thank you very much, Board of Education. We appreciate you very much.
We're going to have so much fun tonight.
Thank you, Ned, for that gift of music. Now, Julie, that's kind of hard to top. Julie Green wants to say a few words. She's representing the GTA and all of the teachers and staff in Garrison.
I would try, though. I'm not used to speaking to a microphone too often. So I am a member of the GTA, and I am here representing our Garrison Teachers Association and our SUPEs. We want to say thank you for your service to the school and the community by serving our Board of Education. Your unending support of teachers, staff, and students is greatly appreciated by the GTA and the Garrison school-related professionals. We thank you for helping us deliver enriching educational programs and providing us with exciting opportunities for professional development that help students to be and do their best. So in keeping with the sunshine, I feel like the sunshine of our school is really the students. So they happily signed this poster for all of you. I might need a little assistance for somebody to hold it. They were so enthusiastic signing this. It says, "It takes heart to volunteer. Thank you for sharing yours with GOFs." And it was signed by all the students in the building, passed around throughout the past few days. So they're really the true heart of our building, and we thank you for being there and supporting them with all you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Well, I feel very appreciated, and thank you both so much for coming and speaking, and that poster is wonderful, and I do love to start our evenings with a song, which brings us right...
Can I have a motion to have Ned start every meeting with a ukulele?
Sure. This brings us up next to our external audit report. You all are laughing, but I have to say, no, you should stay. This is great stuff. I've really enjoyed, I'm the chair of the audit committee as well, and I love this stuff. I feel like I learn so much every year, and it is always a pleasure to work with O'Connor, Davies, and with Chris. So thank you so much for being here. Just want you to know my excitement for this report, this presentation equals the previous, so.
I can see why he thinks the boards are a little boring if you got to put up with me, so. First, I'd like to thank the board for taking the time out of their meeting to let us present the results of your latest school year. We appreciate the fact that we're the external auditors, and again, you know, we just really like being part of the community, so it's great for us. With me tonight is Albert Corvino. He was the on-site manager this year. So as he goes through the variances later on, he's the person that probably could best explain it. So what we're going to do is, I want you to start.
You let me know when
First thing we're going to do is an overview and required communications with the board. We'll talk about your general fund 2021 results. We go through your major revenues, your major expenses, and then we talk about fund balance as to where you're headed in the future. We also talk about some of your other fund balances, and then the outstanding debt that the district may have. Next slide. So as far as the required communication, management and those charged of governance, the board, you have certain responsibilities. That is to select and implement accounting policies that are appropriate to a district of your size and complexity, present your financial statements according with GAAP, establish and maintain effective internal controls over your reporting, and compliance with laws, regulations, provisions of your contracts, agreements, provide the auditors with all the financial records that we need to provide the audit, to complete the audit, and setting the proper tone at the top. And as I said during the audit committee, you know, we look at that by reading your minutes, viewing the videos, and make sure that people are coming out, talking to you, and they have the ability, if they have an issue or a question, to present it to the board. Our responsibility, we came out here in June to do what's known as preliminary work. We pick our samples, we look at cash. The field work was started July 19th. Very early to do field work, just so you know, your school district is one of the first ones that's scheduled, so you know, it's kudos to your finance department for being ready for the audit. And then we didn't complete it on October XX, it was October 5th. We completed the audit. And we delivered the copies to you so you have the time to meet the state requirement of October 15th. So our deliverables are the independent auditor's report, and that's what's known as the opinion, and I'm happy to say that you received what's known as an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean opinion. We also issue an extra classroom activities report based on your clubs and the activities the students run, the required communication we're doing now, and then we also issue a management letter where we have some suggestions and some items that maybe we've seen that could be improved, or you know, things that need to be addressed. We're also required to communicate to you any fraud or illegal acts that we become aware of during the audit. We're happy to say there were none. We do that through interviews, through testing, but again, we only test. So it's not an absolute that we would see something. We encountered no significant difficulties during the course of the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements or journal entries at the end of the audit. In other words, if something came to light and during the audit period, your finance team booked the journal entry. We had no disagreements, and as I said, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance an auditor can provide its client. On the next slide, if I don't turn too far. On the next slide, what we have here is your general fund. So we have 5 columns. We have the original budget, that's the budget that the board adopted before last school year started. The final budget, where during the course of the year, the board might have modified it and adjusted those numbers. Your actual results, We also have a column for encumbrances. Those are items that were ordered prior to year end but weren't yet received. If they had been received, they would have been what's known as payable, but they were still open at the year end. And then we have the variance with the final budget. So if we go to the third number up from the bottom in the first column, you'll see the number 1,068,765. In a perfect world, when you adopted this budget, that's how much of your fund balance, your surplus, you utilized to balance your budget. So when you put your budget together, you knew you had fund balance, and you wanted to make sure that your tax levy was at a reasonable rate for the community, especially given what we just went through with the pandemic and all the challenges you were facing. So that number was made up of 124,000 of encumbrances from the prior year. You also used $415,000 of your unappropriated fund balance. You also used $131,000 from your employee retirement reserve. Over the years, you've put away money to face the challenge of the rising rates that the state charges you for retirement. And you also used $397,000 of your debt service reserve, which is created by interest earnings on your bonds, closed capital projects where you had some excess money. During the course of the year, you did modify it by $500,000 for the iTutor program. So you knew you needed to address that issue when it came up during the year, and you had fund balance sufficient enough to use to take care of that. So at the end, what happened is you only utilized $839,000 of that money. So you basically had a $600,000 budgetary surplus. So overall, you planned on using 1.5 million roughly. You only used about 840,000. So you put 620,000 back in that fund balance to use in future years, and again, to mitigate emergencies, tax increases, items like that. On the revenue side, you generated that surplus by going about $28,000 better than budget. On the expenditure side, you came in about $556,000 under budget, and you also had a transfer in from your special aid fund of about 35, and that equaled to 620. I'll turn it over to Albert. He'll talk about just the variances on how you generated that surplus, and then we'll talk about fund balance when we're done.
Hi, everyone. Before I begin, I first want to thank Joe and Genevieve for all their assistance during the audit. Okay, so now I'll talk about the major revenues. So for property taxes and for STAR, you came in right on budget, where you received 100% of all your taxes. Your interest and penalties, you had a small surplus of about $5,000. Those are some residents that paid late on their taxes. Your use of money and property, that is your interest income, you came in under of about $8,000. That was due to the pandemic. Your interest rates have dropped with the banks. So as you can see from prior year, you got about $33,000, and then it dropped down to about $9,000. Your state aid, you came in under budget about $23,000. This is due to your basic aid came in under about $94,000. However, you had BOCES aid and your lottery aid came in over by about 71, so that offset the 93. So that brought you down to about 23,000. Your miscellaneous, you came over by 55,000. That was due to donations and gifts. And your transfers in, you came in over by about 37,000. This is due to your special aid program, the summer handicap, where you received reimbursement about 37,000, which came back into the general fund. Okay, the next slide is a 5-year revenue history. So this is for the board's reference. This is to help them to see trends and help them with their budget going forward. I do want to point out with property taxes, since 2017 to 2021, you only increased property taxes by about 800,000, which is under 10%, which is great. And we went back and looked back at each year, and we noticed that you were under the cap for each of those years, which is great. So now for your major expenditures, I'm going to talk about the variances. So with the expenditures, we broke them up into the various expense categories. If we broke them up by each department, it would have been over 100 lines, and it would have taken a good amount of time to go through each of them. So with these categories, we put all the expenses in correct where they belong. So for general government support, those are your administrative expenses. You came in under budget by 110,000. That was mainly due to your operation and maintenance forecasting of about 38,000. You had other departments that came in under by like small amounts, and those covered the remaining portion of it. Your instruction or your instructional expenses for teaching, you came in under budget by $388,000. This is due to your program for children with disabilities that came in under by $210,000. So there were less students than anticipated during the year. And also due to salaries and operational supplies that came in under by $130,000. And this is mainly due to the pandemic, which caused everything to decrease with less activity and everything going on. Transportation, you came in under by $75,000. This is due to less transportation usage during the year. Your employee benefits came in over by about 18, and that was due to your teacher's retirement system expenditures were slightly over. And your debt service came right on budget with your debt payments. Okay, next slide. This is, as I mentioned before, so this is a 5-year expenditure history. So this is for like the board's reference. So they could use this, you could see this like how expenses were progressing throughout the years and use it for like future budgets and making projections, seeing how everything's going.
All right. So that brings us to the slide for fund balance. And as I said, you did utilize about $800,000 in the prior year fund balance. And you'll see that in the bottom number where in 2020 you ended the year at about 4.2. And this year you ended at about 3.3, 3.4. Again, planned usage. And the fact that you didn't use it all means it's there for another day. The district utilizes 3, we call them buckets of fund balance. You have what's restricted. Those are restricted by law. You've set aside money for items like tax certiorari's, challenges to people's assessment, the ERS. We all remember 5 or 6 years ago when the rates were rising double digits, the district put away some money to cushion those increases, and now they're using that money. TRS is a relatively new reserve, that's limited to 2% of your teacher salaries each year for the first 5 years. You have money put away for debt service, again, to help mitigate the cost of the interest and debt that you have. You have some money put away for unemployment, and you even put away money for future capital projects. What that does is allow you not to have to bond that money in the future as you go through. And you have money set aside for when individuals from the district retire. You've put away money to pay their accumulated vacation and sick leave pay. So all in all, you have about $2,458,000 in those restricted categories. And then you have what's known as assigned. And in assigned are those purchase orders we talked about, encumbrances. And then you also have $227,000. Again, when you put your budget together for 21-22, again, knowing people are facing challenges, you use some of your fund balance to keep the tax rate at a very reasonable level and stay within the tax cap. And even with all that, it still left you $559,000 in your unassigned, which is limited by New York State to 4%. So the bottom line is you have in there what you can have in there. So all the others are restricted. It can only be used for specific purposes. On the next slide, you do operate some small funds, other than the general fund, the largest being the capital projects fund. And you see you have about $333,000 in fund balance there. And that's related to your one large project. You transferred some money in for some improvements this year. And again, the capital fund doesn't all get done in 1 year, so these monies will be spent in future years without the need of having to borrow or take out a bond for those projects. The school lunch fund was basically inactive this year, so you ended the year with the same number you started. And your special purpose fund has about $55,000 in it this year. But the major piece of that is just an accounting change. As I said, we do an extra classroom report. That extra classroom report, because the Government Accounting Standards Boards decided it should be reported in a special purpose fund instead of the agency fund. So it looks like you have a lot more money than you did, in prior years, but it's all related to that extra classroom activity. And that money is really restricted because it's for the students. On the next slide, the good news is there's really not much to talk about. I put in your debt service payments for the future. Guess what? Your last payment is this year. So you only have outstanding debt of $4,871 for some lease of office equipment. All your bonds are paid off in full. And I know you're probably looking at new projects and items like that. But the good news is you're starting at zero. You're not adding to debt. So you've done a great job of managing your debt and bringing it down. So that's a positive for the district and your taxpayers. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Before I open it up to questions from the board, if anyone has any, I just want to thank you for your effort. Thank Joe and Genevieve for all their effort in supplying all the documents. I know you pointed out we do ours very early, and that was quite a feat for you guys to get everything together. You guys also, your team was here during the summer while this building was being torn apart. And I really appreciate you guys coming in and working through all the construction and all the mayhem. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. So do I have any questions or comments regarding the report? I know the audit committee has already reviewed this, which includes Jocelyn and Kent and myself, as well as community members. Anyone else? All right.
Well, actually, I have
okay,
a question.
Go for it, David.
I'm sure you guys do a lot of these, right?
Yes, about 40.
Grab a microphone, David, so you can be heard really well. Thanks.
All right, I'll do it this way. All right, thank you. That was an IQ test I just failed. No, I'm just curious. I mean, I know you guys do a lot of these reports, and I'm curious to know when you see a report, an audit, when you do an audit, and the results are terrible. What does it look like? I mean, this is obviously we're very comfortable. We've done a good job. What does it look like when a school board doesn't do a good job?
I think it would show up in that actual column, as I said. If you plan to use $1.5 million, we'll use you as an example. You plan to use $1.5 million. If you ended up using $2 million, so you went over that planned usage of fund balance, that means you overspent your lines or you overestimated your revenue. So the key to a report is you look at the revenues and see if they're relatively close to what you anticipated, and yours were within $28,000 and $10 million is very close. And then what you look at is to see if you overexpended on any budget lines. And if you did, we'd disclose that in a management letter comment. We'd also disclose it in a footnote. So we look for overexpended. We also do a search of unrecorded liabilities. We look at subsequent receipts because usually a school district, if you're saying in your example, if somebody's in trouble, they might be delaying bills. So we look out while we're here and look at future bills and see if everything's been recorded in the proper year. But the real test is the actual. If you use more fund balance than you anticipated, that means you had a bad year. And it's usually in the overstatement of estimated revenue, where you estimate more state aid or estimate more reimbursements for day school charges, items like that.
That's where you get into trouble.
Right, because your expenditures are based on contracts, agreements and things like that. So if you overestimate your revenue and don't collect it, you're going to run shortfall.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Again, thank you very much for your time.
Seeing you in the spring. Thank you so much, guys. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next, we have the capital project update with Tetra Tech and Calgi Construction. Is there Tetra Tech tonight or just Calgi? Just Calgi Construction tonight. Welcome.
Eric Wilson from Calgi Construction. All right, I will move this so it points at my mouth. Okay, well, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm really glad to be here with all the celebration. You guys I've seen a lot of boards, and you guys are a very positive one and seem to work together very well, so I'm glad to be contributing to that tonight and helping you guys to have a really positive message here because I think the construction is going very well. Thank you to Mr. Albano for going through the change orders with us and having these ready for you. Dusty and Carl got these ready for you to look at, a series of change orders that you've approved for us, and there's a lot being processed right now. What you're looking at right here is a summary of the change orders to date and also pending change orders over the course of the project. The first column is the original total contract. All the contracts together is about $6 million of construction is what we awarded at the start of the project. The change orders that have been approved to date, including what you're looking at, what you have seen, is about $164,000. And this compares to a contingency amount of $720,000, which we talked about before this went into construction. So that contingency, we're a fair ways into it with what's been approved to date. But we also want to look at what's pending. Now, pending represents a lot of different categories. Some of the pending items are things like additional roof repairs. The district elected improvements to classroom spaces and teaching spaces and corridor spaces, and there's a lot of additional work which we're doing along the way because it just makes sense to improve these spaces while we're in there doing this level of construction. So a lot of that pending is elected work that we have out there that we're getting pricing on to see if we can get a reasonable price from the contractors to do that work, at which point we'd come to you and say, here we go, we've vetted these prices, we think it's a good value for the district, and we recommend award of these other additional pending change orders. So that's a significant amount of that pending line, which is around $211,000. So that represents all that we know of, and also estimated things that are on the radar for what's coming. It also includes some items which are underway, which we're sort of, some of them are time and material ticket items that the contractors are working on, that they're discovering conditions and dealing with those in the field. That's a very small percentage of what's on there. A lot of what's pending also is additional mechanical work and electrical work and things of that nature, which are impacting the planned construction. So I think a significant portion of that pending is going to happen. It needs to happen just in the course of construction beyond what's elected work. But the total of all of those columns, so 164,000 is approved and 211,000 is pending for a total of around 376,000. So 720 was the number that we had for contingency, and 376 is where we are right now with everything we know of as far as change orders, actual and potential for the state of the project. So we're done with the summer, we're into the school year, phasing through the building, and we're a good ways through the project. So we're actually very comfortable with where we are versus the budget and the planning for the project. We're using contingency at about the rate we expected. You're aware of some of the unforeseen things that we've dealt with in terms of abatement and other issues. We didn't anticipate those specifically, but we budgeted the money to make sure we were prepared in case those things happened, and lo and behold, they did happen, and more may continue to happen, so we still have the rest of that contingency as we go forward. Go ahead, Dustin. So, again, the total contracts, this is a contracts payment summary, which represents the applications for payment by the different contractors to date. So again, we have about $6 million of construction, and as of right now, we paid out $100,000 of change orders. Those have increased the contract sum from about $6 million to $6.2 million, and then the payments made on all those projects in construction are about $1.7 million, or roughly 27 to 30% of the overall construction award amount has been paid to the contractors. And I'd say we're about 50% done with the actual project work. So construction is well ahead of the amount we paid them, which is typical. There's a couple month lag between when they do the work, we get the payment applications, we review them, and we look at the pencils and it goes back and forth. So that's about what we expect at this stage of the project and how it typically goes in the course of construction. And I think that's the last slide. Actually, the one thing, could you go back for a second? One thing I wanted to mention, that last column, the percent of contract. So you see we're averaging about 6% of construction is in terms of change orders. That's about where we expect it to be. The contingency is 720 is typically based on about 10%. For this type of a renovation project, it's actually more expensive in terms of contingency for discovery of concealed conditions on a renovation project than it would be on a new construction project, where your biggest open-ended issue is the ground and whatever you find under the ground. But here we're dealing with a lot of discovered conditions and existing structures and existing situations that you really cannot anticipate until you're there doing the work. It's like any of you who've done a house construction project, you've got to put some money aside when you open up that attic space or whatever you're doing to discover what's happening down there and deal with it. So we're tracking along. As you see, like the GC has the bulk of the change orders. They also have the biggest bulk of the percentage of those issues because they're the ones dealing with those unforeseen conditions that represent the contingency issues of the project. Plumbers don't deal with it as much, and the mechanical number is low because at this point, the mechanicals are just being installed. We just got the shipments of unit ventilators, all the equipment is out there in trailers, so we'll be, hopefully it'll be evening out, well, not hopefully, but most likely there'll be more additional mechanical change orders, and we'll be evening out with fewer GC change orders, we hope, and it'll all work out in the wash with the overall contingency. So that's basically in terms of the change order summary. You can open up the questions. Madeline.
Thank you so much for all your work.
Grab the microphone.
The construction seems to be going well based
Sorry,
on.
Madeline.
You got to pull it out.
Yeah, just
Pull it
pull
right
it out and
No,
then
slide it
shout
out of the
at
thing.
us, please.
Shout.
Over the
Hello? Great. Thank you so much for managing the construction. We really appreciate you and Calgi. The construction is going well, and we're thrilled to see, we're not too thrilled about all of the change orders, but we're thrilled of the construction progress. And some of these change orders, especially on the approved columns, I've been through them, and a lot of them are unexposed, straightforward conditions of pipe and vents that are in the walls that are unexposed. So that I get. The 162,000 on the pending, we appreciate that you're letting us know that that's coming up. It would be great to understand the major, and maybe not here later, the major item of what makes up that 162.
Absolutely.
And also if we can see the bigger picture of the whole construction cost, because right now this is the construction, we have incidental cost. There is the construction contingency that you mentioned for 10%. We used to have a design contingency. We also had escalation costs that we probably didn't use, I'm not sure. So there's additional contingency within the budget that will tell the picture a little bit better of how much contingency we have left for the overall budget.
Right.
So if for next time, if we can see the larger picture.
Absolutely. We'll work on that. I mean, as you mentioned, the project award was favorable compared to where we budgeted it. So overall, for those other contingency, we're in pretty good shape. But the abatement issues have impacted the incidental items. We've had some discovered conditions like the roof work, which you're aware of, the emergency work, which is not a project line item, but it did impact the scope of the project and other things of that nature. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But I think it'll be good picture to see. Should I also give a brief little summary about a couple things, Carl, in terms of where we are in the project?
Yes, you may want to even explain the noise
The noise you're hearing in the background. In prior board meetings, we discussed sort of the critical path issues with this project, and heating the spaces has been a critical issue. And the heating requirement both is new mechanical equipment, which we are eagerly anticipating, the delivery of that equipment throughout the support of the project. And then with that, in order to make that equipment function, we would need a new electric service. So those are kind of the two sides of this equation that we've been focused on in terms of our schedule and our concerns. The train equipment, if you recall, in this project, we did sort of unusual. We broke the mechanical equipment out separate from the contractor. So the mechanical contractor is not providing the equipment. It was bought directly by the district previously, but before we even awarded the project, to make all of this happen. So that equipment, the Tetra Tech did all the shop drawings in advance, ordered all that equipment in advance so it could be shipped on time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any equipment as of right now. So that's the only reason why we have any. But so the good news is all of our concerns so far are working out. We got all the unit ventilators we need right now, are on site and are set in locations in the classrooms. In the new and existing classrooms, we have unit ventilators in each classroom that we've been working on. And we've been waiting for power to turn those on. And the noise you're hearing is the new switchgear, which there's the Central Hudson connection side of things, and Central Hudson has been amazing. We call, they come to our meetings, they're very responsive, very helpful in suggesting ways to expedite work, and it's been a pleasure working with Central Hudson. So if any of you have connections with that industry, let them know that they've been really working hard on behalf of the district to make sure that happens. So their side is in good shape in terms of power coming in. The switchgear, we learned just a few weeks ago, was lost in the limbo of supply and delivery, which a lot of industries have been facing right now. So we weren't even sure we were going to have that for another week or two from now, and that was going to be a disastrous situation. But the good news is we have an excellent electrical contractor. Hudson Valley is our electrical contractor, and Ray's been working diligently behind the scenes to do everything he can to get that switchgear here. The switchgear is sort of like the brains of the electrical service. When it comes into the building, it goes into the switchgear, which has the main shutoff you see in a building, and then it sends the power to all the other systems. So that is a large switchgear just arrived today. and is being installed. It was put in place just before the meeting, and they're working to power that up tonight and tomorrow. So we'll have that additional service by early next week. So we'll have all the heating systems in the new spaces and the existing classrooms that were renovated with new power and new unit ventilators are going to be functional within the next week or so. So we're very thrilled. We were obviously being able to maintain proper classroom environment is foundational. It's critical to being able to function with the school. And you know, we were frantically looking at, well, if this doesn't happen, all these what ifs were what we had to deal with. And now we're in a world of, okay, now it's just about expediting the work, getting it done, getting through this next week of transition to all that power being on. So those are the critical factors of the project, and I'm pleased to say that all that work is in place and in process of being completed right now. So we're in very good shape.
Thank you. I know Madeline has a lot more expertise in this, but just from what I've read in papers and stuff, we've all seen about the supply chain issues across the country. So I do think it is quite an accomplishment that you were able to make that happen.
It's not I. It's really it's a team
You're here.
effort.
We'll give you some credit right now.
It's a team effort, and it's again excellent contractors. You have utility companies that are working with us to make sure it happens, and yeah, we're just very fortunate. Also, it's fun. It's just being fortunate that it came. So thank you very much.
Do you have any other further questions or comments regarding the capital project? This has also been reviewed with the facilities committee as well, correct, Matt? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we had a good tour last week on all the spaces.
Before Eric leaves, another good report is that we believe by the second week of November, we will have grades 1, 2, and 3 moving in to occupy newly renovated classrooms. So we're very excited about that. We've been working with our construction team, and we'll be working with our teachers to comfortably get the students and the teachers into these new classrooms, and it's very exciting. They look beautiful. If the board wants to take a look later, we could certainly arrange that at some point, but that's happening soon, and we're excited.
And one other reminder on that end, as you recall, this project is phased to happen through the school year, and the teachers and the staff, you know, Allison has been amazing with, I don't know how she manages it, keeping it all straight, and the teachers are so positive. You know, they make the best of the spaces. We kind of came into this project knowing that there's going to be a little bit of rough conditions for a while, and they've been incredible. But so, as Mr. Albano mentioned, in early November, we're moving into the first phase, and then the teachers are moving into the new spaces, and then some of the classrooms that they're in right now are being emptied, and then they're being renovated. So that's going to be working through the building. This next phase is going to be happening until the end of the year, the Christmas break, and then after that will be another phase of renovations, and then maybe a fourth phase after that. We'll see where we are at the end of all that. And then the balance is going to happen in the summer. So there's a lot of work that's going to be ongoing through the school year, which actually addresses the supply chain concerns, because on this project, we have that luxury that we're not tied to a product being here before things can be done. Right now, those classrooms, we have ceramic tile being installed, we have new painting, all those classrooms are going to be ready on track, and we're in very good shape. And one thing to mention is, you know, that Christmas break, we're going to be doing more of the abatement work is going to be happening at that point, and also casework is going to be installed. They're moving in classrooms they're going to be their classrooms, but they're not quite done yet. We still have some casework and other items which are lagging, which will be installed at that later time. So we're coordinating it all, getting it done. And what's made it all possible actually has been the flexibility of the district to allow us to remove ceilings, to work in and occupy spaces that don't have floors, because the flooring hasn't come for other spaces yet. We do have flooring in the new wing. You should check it out. It's pretty amazing looking in that area if you haven't seen it, and you know, things of that nature. But the flexibility of the district to allow this work to happen has been expediting the construction in great ways. So thank you for your cooperation and patience as we make the best of this process and hopefully get you guys a great school, renovated spaces in a great condition for next year. So we're doing our best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Madeline has one more question for you.
Yeah.
Last question. I just want to make sure I got this right. Every single classroom will have heat, not just the 3 classrooms that are renovated, right? Every single classroom will have heat?
Correct.
So they're all going to have the new unit heaters, or is it going to be a mixture of the old?
It's complicated. Yeah. the three classrooms right here, 11, 13, and 14. 14 is now the teacher's lounge. Those lost their unit ventilators and have new ones in there now that are going to have heat. The kindergarten room and the music room at the end are going to also have new unit ventilators. And down in this wing, 28 and the little office next to it, 26, are going to have new unit ventilators also. The 30-31, where the third grade is right now, those two spaces, they're existing until the next phase. So we'll be talking about when those are going to get, those are going to be renovated next, and they'll be done during the next phase. So it's complicated to answer you. Some of the existing, some of the spaces are existing unit ventilators that still function. All the ones that were removed are being installed now, so every classroom will have heat, whether existing steam or new electrical heat from the new system.
Thank you.
Does that answer it, or did it confuse it further?
New and old, but there's heat. That's the
There's
important
heat
thing
everywhere,
is heat.
and ventilation's on the way too.
Yeah, just for clarity, some classrooms will remain on the old system until we renovate those rooms. And I think a half dozen rooms will have the new unit ventilators, the new system, which should be operational by next week. So we're in good shape. We were a little nervous, but it's come together, and that's why we're allowing some work behind us, because we're trying to expedite things, but we believe we're in good shape at this point.
All right, any other questions? Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate your time this evening.
My pleasure.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Before we move on, I'm going to take us back. There was a recommended action to accept the external audit report that in my excitement over the audit report, I skipped over. You have my apologies. The recommended action is, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the external audit report for the 2020-2021 school year as presented by PFK O'Connor Davies accounting firm. May I have a motion, please? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Yes. Yep. I'm now going to jump ahead to public comment. We have a sign-in sheet which Dusty is collecting. I will remind everyone that public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 3220 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to speak during public comment period are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet and will be called in order to speak. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings that are, we don't need that one anymore. We're not on video conference. Okay. I don't have anyone signed up, but if anyone does wish to speak. No more songs? Okay. Thank you very much. We will continue on then. Up next is President's Remarks. I'm going to be very brief. I just want to point out that this evening, due to connectivity issues, as you've heard, we are in the middle of the capital project. In this space, we will discontinue the live streaming until our capital project is complete. People are still welcome to attend our meetings in person, and the meetings will be posted, the video recording of them, within 24 hours and are available to the public to watch. I also wanted to point out that today is Unity Day. I'm sorry I did not wear my orange. I could not find it, but I noted that a lot of the staff and teachers around here and students were. Unity Day is one of the key points of what is the Bullying Awareness Month in October, and it shows kindness, acceptance, and inclusion, and to send a visible message that no child should ever experience bullying. I know this is something that our administrating team, our teachers, they address this on a daily basis, and so this is just a chance to acknowledge the work they do. If parents want to find additional resources, there is stopbullying.org that you can go to for ways you can help with your children. All right, that's all I had this evening. Carl, we're on to Superintendent's Remarks.
Sure. I just have one update for the board. I wanted to let you know that the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and you may recall back in the spring, we approved an agreement with them. They are a nonprofit organization, and they're helping us to maintain the Garrison School Forest. Mike Semertano, Rachel Arbor, our new environmental teacher, and I met with them. I just want to thank Melissa Cassini and also Mary Dodds, who was one of their local volunteers. They're just fantastic. I mean, at no expense to the district. They've done a lot of work, but they're going to continue working on our trails. Together, we decided that we would like them to prioritize the green trail, and it gives us access to the forest from Beckwith Lane, which is right behind the school, and it gives us direct access. The trail is a little steep. We don't advise our students going on that trail right now, but they're going to do some work. There's some eroded areas that they're going to fix. There's some loose rock that they will take care of and provide some other maintenance. And then once we will go and assess it after that work is done, and we do plan to access it directly. The huge benefit here is right now we're taking buses to the forest. And that's okay, but having direct access will be a lot more convenient and a lot less expensive as well. We're thinking probably grades 3 through 8 could handle that trail right now. The younger children, we probably still will provide the bus transportation. Also, they're going to help us assess where we can put a compostable outdoor toilet. Joe has done some research in that area, but we're still trying to find the best location. So they're going to give us some advice there, and also potentially expanding the parking area so our buses can maneuver in and out more easily. So again, I just want to say thank you, publicly recognize this organization. It's great that they are partnering with us and helping to maintain our trails. We do appreciate that, and we'll next month, Rachel Arbor will be here, and she'll give you a lot more detail about the work and the education that is happening in the school forest. And that's all for this evening.
Do I have any questions for Carl? Okay. Next, we will move on then to the accepting of the minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the minutes of the October 6, 2021 regular meeting. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Thank you. Okay, next we move on to financial reports. I'll read the recommended action first. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the internal claims auditor report for September 2021 as presented. May I have a motion, please? So moved. Okay. Joe, do you want to speak to these reports?
Yes, so the internal claims auditor report is our
Is it on? This is our new internal claims auditor for those that we appointed recently.
Yes, so this is our internal claims auditor, our new one that works in the main office, and these are the first reports for the claims that were completed in September.
Do you have any question on the reports as presented? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay, next we will move on to the treasurer's reports for June, July, August, and September. Read the recommended action first. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the treasurer's reports for June 2021, July 2021, August 2021, and September 2021 as presented. May I have a motion, please? So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes, so what we have is all of the treasurer's reports from June. What happens at the close of the last fiscal year is until the audit is completed, the numbers that become the beginning balance for July aren't final. And until they're final, it's hard to do these these reports. But now that they are final, we are going to have treasurer's reports occurring on a regular basis from here on out.
Do I have any questions for Joe regarding the treasurer's reports as presented? Okay, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, next up we have committee reports. The Facilities Committee met. Matt, I'm turning this over to you.
Great. Well, first we wanted to say thank you on all accounts. We had a great tour last week, which Eric mentioned. And the big point of nervousness is being resolved. That's what we're listening to. So that's great. We also had a really good discussion at the meeting about future library use and what a library looks like for this next generation, which I think will be a discussion that is coming up for all of us on the board and in the community, and what a multimedia space means in this age of everyone having the world in their pocket. So that was a productive sort of introductory conversation that I think will lead to really interesting and thoughtful and constructive conversations to come. But everything's great, so thank you.
Do you have any questions for our Chair of Facilities Committee?
And thank you to the committee and Madeline especially for making us all look so intelligent.
We do really appreciate you, Matt. Thank you, Matt, for running the committee. And thank you to our community members who serve on it. I know that is one with a lot of voices, and I appreciate it. Okay, next we will move on to the consent agenda. Okay, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Carl L. Albano, Superintendent, hereby approves the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Carl, do you want to speak to some of these before we move on?
Sure. On this evening's personnel consent agenda, we have a recommendation to appoint a custodial worker bus driver. Robert Grassi has over 20 years of experience. I'm sure you had the chance to look at his resume. He has extensive experience just with inspections, maintenance, also bus driving, snow removal, all the things that we need. So he was a really good match. He went through a process and led by Michael Twardy, and we really think he'll be a good fit for our team. So that is one recommendation. Also, we have a community member, Brian Fitzgerald, who has volunteered to serve on our audit committee. He has over 15 years of experience with investigative and forensic accounting, so I know that skill set, that expertise will be very valued, and we appreciate him volunteering for this particular committee. Mentors, we do have 3 teacher mentors who have agreed to mentor new teachers in Garrison. This is very important and something that we support, and we appreciate our veteran teachers, Krista DiDiego, Lauren Johnson, and Jennifer Pitts for stepping up and offering to work with new teachers to the district. Lastly, there is a resignation for an ENL teacher. You may recall at our previous meeting, we appointed an ENL teacher. This particular person accepted a position in another district. She really never started with us. She was very polite about it, but it was a little disappointing, I have to admit. But ENL teachers are in very high demand, and I knew there were a number of other vacancies. So I don't know her exact reasons, but again, she did withdraw. So we need to formally accept her resignation. Our students that get ENL support are getting support from our interventionist, and we do plan to come back with a recommendation to fill this vacancy shortly. Hopefully, at one of our upcoming board meetings, we'll have a follow-up recommendation.
Thank you, Carl. I will also point out that Ryan Fitzgerald is also a graduate of GUFS. So it's nice that he's willing to serve, too. Any questions for Carl on the consent agenda as presented before we move to a vote?
Just quick.
How many students receive E&L services right now?
There are 4. 3 are actually transitioning out. Kent, they made wonderful progress, so they're on what we call transitional services. And the one who is still qualifies for services is doing really well, and we anticipate that child may exit out shortly. They do have to test out of the service. So the good news is these students are doing well, and we do have very competent interventionists that can provide support until we can secure someone for the position.
Any further questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay. We will now move on to old business. First up, we have the approval of the district-wide safety plan. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the district-wide safety plan for the 2021-2022 school year as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on this plan as presented? Before we move to a vote, you'll recall we had a public hearing on this 30 days ago. And it has been posted to the district website, correct?
Yes.
For public review. Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Next up, we have new business, a request for approval to accept donation. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Carl L. Albano, Superintendent, hereby accepts a donation from James Nick Sears of 2 HTP Extreme Accuracy Water Resistant Temperature Humidity Barometric Pressure Smart Sensors and 1 G1 Wi-Fi Gateway. The board further directs the district clerk to send a letter of thanks on behalf of the Board of Education to Mr. Sears for his donation. May I have a motion, please? Okay. Any questions regarding the donation? I want to say a thank you to Mr. Sears for reaching out and getting in touch to provide this, what I'm sure will be much appreciated equipment. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Nays? Abstentions? Okay, next we move on to the change orders. May I have a motion to approve new business action items B through F, which include the capital project change orders on this agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Do you have any questions regarding the change orders as presented? Dusty saved me having to read every last bit of it.
I just have one question. Do these change order change the schedule of the project at all, or we're keeping the same schedule?
Same schedule.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions before we approve the change orders? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, we have already done public comment. So we are now going to move on to board member comment and other discussion. You don't know. Okay. Matt.
I think we started at the top last time.
We're going to start at the bottom then and start with me. I have no further comment this evening. Matt, you're up next.
No further comment.
Okay. Kent?
No further comment.
Okay. Courtney?
I just wanted to say thank you for the ongoing work of the facilities committee. You guys keep working so hard on this project and speaking a language that I don't understand, and I suspect a number of other people don't. So thank you for all your time. And where would we be without Dusty? Thank you, Dusty. Thank you for your incredible work and generous donation, and honestly just keeping us in line every week of the year. That's all.
Okay. Madeline?
No comment.
Okay. David?
No comment.
Okay. Justin?
Sorry, we're ending it, we're getting through this agenda at record speed, but I wanted to, one quick comment. We just got thanked for all of our service, which of course I thank everyone for serving with us, but I've been feeling so much too, how much the administration and the faculty are really bearing so many burdens. This is obviously a national thing going on, right? We're still in the middle of a pandemic, but then on top of it with the capital project, and like you mentioned, Eric, teachers are moving rooms or are having to live out of boxes. There's a lot of new initiatives, new curriculums. You know, the board obviously plays a role in approving all of that and kind of asking them, the admin and the faculty and staff, to continue to push through it. So just to my board members, is there anything, I don't know how we can discuss this since we're not allowed to discuss anything together except in public meetings, but what can we do to make sure that both our admin and our faculty and staff are feeling as much supported as they possibly can? Not facing the burnout or, you know, and all the national statistics of teachers wanting to leave their jobs, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what can we do? And I know we all care about it. And maybe we don't have ideas right now, or maybe Matt has an idea because it happened to you as a teacher that's keeping you not being burnt out. But what is it that we might be able to provide or say? I don't know. I don't have any ideas, mind you.
I will respond with that.
Great.
I think staying really focused on our board goals and what the priorities we have already set will really help from the board level on down. We're not just constantly adding new initiatives, taking new steps until everyone has had the chance to really do the work that we've set forth. I think the math curriculum that we adopted is a great example of that, where there's so much work being done right now to adopt that curriculum and teach it to the children, including PD days and all of that. So before we move on as a board to the next thing, because I know the math curriculum isn't a lot of work for us right now, obviously, we need to give the teachers and the staff and the admin the time to really see those projects through. So I think the biggest thing we can do, aside from gratitude, is have patience. And I think we ask a lot of our teachers every day, especially right now during the pandemic. I can imagine the amount of patience they must have to deal with on a regular year, all the children coming into their room. But those are just my initial thoughts. I do think it is an interesting and ongoing conversation.
I think the pandemic point that you both brought up is a big one. I think there's, we have to remember the teachers are doing just as much this year to keep our communities, kids safe as they were doing last year. So the more we can do as a community to support that and remember that, I think, as you say, it's hard to do anything tangible, but I think an acknowledgement of it, hopefully psychologically can help. They know that we know. Maybe the most tangible thing is just, I heard lots of folks this week in various conversations in the community talking about how they're sort of over the testing thing, in part in response to talk and informal talk of false positives. And I would say to families out there, false positives are not a reason to be against testing. That's my personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, just as a comment in response to what you said. But I think testing is obviously protective of our kids, and it is maybe a tangible way of showing support to these teachers who are going above and beyond and have been for a year and a half to keep the kids safe and to keep themselves safe. So the teachers have been going in ever since the school opened back up and being part-time teacher, part-time healthcare worker. So anything we can do to help recognize that as they continue to do that work maybe is something semi-tangible.
I guess this is more a question. Do we have any spaces for the teachers, for admin, where in the middle of the day, they just need kind of like a time to just relax? Aside from the teacher's lounge, is there like a respite space or anything like that, or something that, I don't know, because I think the environment always helps, and sometimes we all just need to breathe in, breathe out, relax, and go into a space where we can do that and regenerate. So I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know if that has come up, but it could be as simple as, especially with construction going on now, it can just be something temporary, a room, dim lights. There's a couple of those type of spaces going around now, being built for hospitals and for nurses, just to take a couple of minutes in between the day. So that's just an idea.
Well, if there was a way to do that for them outside, I know there's a lot of talk about kids getting mass breaks, but I know teachers would appreciate mass breaks, but they're always around the kids and they're always inside or they're educating outside. If there's a way for teachers to sort of combine that idea with, if it could give them a chance to kind of walk outside for 20 minutes without a mask on, I'm sure they would appreciate that.
We do have some of that in the courtyard spaces. We've got some picnic tables which see pretty regular use by the staff by themselves.
That's great.
So we have some of that going on, and while the weather is still good, you know, people are definitely going outside to take a break during their time.
Excellent.
What this raises in my mind is that we as board members don't really have any informal communication with faculty members, except for our kids' teachers, but that's a different matter. So, I mean, we can speculate or guess what it is that teachers want or need. Thanks. But of course, we really depend on Carl, who does have a sense of where teachers are, to let us know. I mean, I wouldn't propose necessarily that we figure out some mechanism by which we have informal communication with faculty, but I'd be open to it if it's generally, if other people think it's a good idea, and if you think it's a good idea.
I think it's important, I'll just jump in here, David, that to continue to follow the chain of command. We've worked really hard to impose that.
I understand that.
But I do think if Carl wants to, I think what you're saying is maybe like poll the faculty to see what they need from us.
Well, I'm just saying that we're guessing what, I had no real knowledge of the faculty's morale or what they would say about what they need. So having a chain of command and having Carl as the person who's there is fine for me. But
I will just mention, the board may not even be aware of this, and I apologize because I should inform you. We do meet at least once per month with our teacher representatives from the GTA. And sometimes it's twice a month if we think we need a second meeting. And that happened all last year, and it's continuing this year. We do have some new members on the leadership team, and the entire admin team is there. Joe comes as needed if there's a business issue, but Mike Sammartano, Allison, Emig, and I are there with the teacher leadership team, and we do a lot of listening. And I think it's important to listen. I hope our teachers, I'd like to think that they do feel comfortable expressing their needs and what would help them in their job. You know, there are some things, I think Jocelyn touched on this, there are some things in today's climate that are just simply not within our control. We are still in a pandemic. A lot of our teachers have families. They've sent their kids off to school. That's always a bit of a stressor. Managing that and your work and as board members, you're doing that as well. That is not within our control, but I think whatever we can do internally, and we are open, and I do think our teachers feel comfortable. In fact, recently they made some recommendations for some adjustments to schedule and some release time, and we've been responsive to that. Madeline, I do like what you're saying, though. With construction, we have a temporary teacher's lounge, but it's a table, it's a refrigerator, it's not all that comfortable. But I do think in the near future, as construction progresses, that we could make a little more of an investment in a room that the teachers would feel comfortable in, and not just teachers, but teachers and all staff. You do need that downtime, and I like what you're saying. I'd love to hear more ideas about some of the spaces you've helped design. But I think we need to make a bit of an investment there because right now, getting outdoors is great, but the winter months will be approaching soon, and it will be helpful for them to have a comfortable space, just to have a little bit of downtime.
Further comment, questions? Okay. We'll move on then to executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective negotiations of the GTA and SRP units pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, we will adjourn the meeting without taking further action this evening.